Welcome pilots, my name is Hybrid V and today we are in 3.18 PTU, and boy has it been in PTU for some time. I believe this is the longest running patch taking its time since probably 3.0, which was way back in 2017. And that's partly what I want to talk about today, is why it's taking so long to get to us. And part of the way I want to do that is by doing my normal run through of talking about the new features coming into this patch and kind of laying things out so we can kind of explore it together and understand why this patch is going to take us so long. Some of you already know why to some degree or another, but many of you like to watch my run-throughs through these patches because you want to get a better understanding of why things are the way they are and what is coming in the latest patch. And I'm going to do that by doing some of these locate monitor missions out here in the Crusader area. So I'm going to go ahead and try to mark some of these monitors. I have to just get close to them. I'm not going to attack them right away, because if I attack them right away, it's going to immediately start the timer, which is going to cost me way too much time while I'm trying to find the other monitors. Incoming missile comes my way, drop some decoys, easily bypass that guy. I'm going to go ahead and do some pings. There's the next monitor. I'm going to just avoid the AI trying to defend these monitors because they are not important. What is important to me is to locate these monitors. There's a PDC. I think I flew past the other one as well, so I think this is going to be all three marked. Yes, there they are. They are now marked on my mission manager so I can see them clearly. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my way to this one over here. I think this is another one. It says 3 out of 3 marked, but yeah, okay, yeah, so here's the monitor. I think that might be something else out there 13k away. So I'm going to come towards this one. This is one of the monitors. I'm going to attack it because the moment I attack it, the timer is going to start. So this is the reason why I like to focus on the monitors first. So why am I doing this mission here when I'm supposed to be talking about 3.18 PTU? Well, the reason why is because one of the features coming in this patch, I'm just going to go ahead and burn, let's slow ourselves down, is the new soft death feature coming into patch 3.18. We've talked about this in the past before. It is a new feature where if you attack and destroy a player or a NPC ship, there's a chance that the ship will actually not be fully destroyed and instead will enter a soft death state where it can be salvaged or it can be entered in. You could basically breach into it or whatever. And the same goes here, and I'm going to try to demonstrate it while talking about the patch. But first, let's go ahead and destroy some of these monitors. Not too worried about that cutlass yet. I'm more worried about this monitor. As you can see on the top center of the screen, the timer has started, so I'm going to try to slow my roll here, take out these monitors. I don't really care too much about the fighters. I am in my Hornet here. I've been taking the Hornet out a long time, so figured now is a good time as any to take it out and do some combat with it. Especially in a new patch. I always like to fly the older ships in the newer patches just to see if CIG has done anything interesting with them. The Hornet indeed is a very old ship. She's also very tanky, slow, not really a great PvP fighter, but definitely an excellent one for PvE because of the amount of guns she brings. And indeed, I'm bringing 3 size 3 attritions and 2 size 2 sawbucks on the turret. Let's go ahead and slow our roll, boost in, unload guns. Once this monitor's down, the mission is complete, and then I will mop up these defenders. Let's see, first one on the chopping block. Let's get this cutlass out of the way. I'm going to try to avoid his main guns, even though they're not that important. The main thing I'm trying to avoid with these cutlasses is I'm trying to avoid his turret, so I'm going to try to stay above him, or in this case, below him, so his turret can't engage me. There you go, he's down. You see how the way he exploded there, that is actually the new soft death system. He did not blow up into chunks. He is fully intact there. Gonna go and engage this guy. Not too worried about his front guns because the AI cutlass loadouts are pretty trash. They can't hit you no matter how hard they try. It's mostly the turrets you want to worry about here. So I'm gonna get into his belly and unload here. Got the sun annoyingly in my face, but I'm gonna try to keep up with him as he tries to pull away. He's going to try to nose on with me. Again, not too worried. I'm mostly worried about the turret. So I'm just going to hold off at an angle here slightly and then continue to unload it once the charge cycles are complete. Let's get some ballistics in there too, get some real nice DPS. In this patch, they have increased the ballistic penetration. He's down to about 90% of the shields now. So pretty much only 10%, or the shields only mitigate about 10% of the damage from ballistics now, which is incredible. But they also recently, in a quite recent update in the PT, also made it so that ships have a roughly about a 50% base mitigation from ballistics. Mantis is down. My shields are down. I'm not too worried about it. Again, I'm in a Hornet. It is an incredibly tanky fighter for its class as a medium fighter, so I'm not too worried about it. My shields will eventually come back. I'm not going to expend too much because I do want to show off one of the new mechanics coming in, which is not just the soft death. I'm going to show off some salvage here in a moment. And one of the things I will try to do is repair my ship, which is also part of salvage coming in. Freelancer here, going to avoid his turret. The turret is kind of trash on the Freelancer. It's also a very old ship. So one way you can easily avoid the turret is just get under it, or you can get directly above it because the turret can't look directly up. And that Freelancer is going to be easily smashed. Let's move on to this one here. I do want to avoid his main guns because those main guns are cannons. While easy to avoid, they will knock my shields down very, very quick and do a lot of damage. Indeed, those cannons are much better suited for dealing with me than it is the lighter repeaters the enemies have here, especially since their accuracy is not going to be the greatest. Oop, let's not get too close. Woo! Got a little bit too close there, a little too much forward thrust. Let's go ahead and get some separation and pull away. Again, not too worried about my health. I am in a Hornet. I am very, very tanky. I'm going to deal with this Buccaneer, though, because he is a little bit annoying. Put some rounds in him. Buccaneer is pretty much a glass cannon, so we're just going to dump as much as I possibly can into him as he pulls away a little bit. Let's get back on him, nose on, dump the rounds. Nope, that wasn't a good pass there. I guess I didn't get him there. Let's go ahead. This should finish him off right here. There we go. Move on to the next threat. That is a dead Cutlass. What else we got here? Is that the Freelancer? That is the Freelancer. All right. Here, you got a missile. Hold this L for me, sir. As we come in. Okay, it looks like it hit. The MFDs did not flash. I have no idea if I actually hit him or if that was like a bug. Incoming missile. Decoys away. They did change some of the signatures for decoys as well as missiles. They kind of made missiles a little bit more consistent, so EM missiles are no longer overpowered like they are in 3.17. And decoys are a little bit more consistent at shaking things off. You still have to make sure you drop them in groups. That Freelancer goes down very easily. Let's lock onto this Buccaneer, and let's go ahead and spray him down. All right, his shields are collapsed. He should go down in another charge cycle here once we're up. And it looks like I'm doing more damage to his wing as it goes. There goes the wing. Let's go ahead and get the ballistics on him now. There's not much he can do at that point. He is down. Next target. I'm not entirely certain what that is. A Cutlass, okay. Yeah, sometimes you can't tell, especially in the Hornet. You can't tell what you're fighting because apparently the game prioritizes Skype calls over actually trying to understand what your opponent is on the MFD. But I digress. Let's go ahead and finish him off. I'm a little bit high angle here. Got to watch out for that turret. But it's okay because I'm going to be blasting the crap out of this guy. He is not hitting me very well. So I'm going to be a little bit more lax. One engine goes down. He's still up in the fight. And looks like a station defense turret's missile finished him off for me. And that's the end of the fight. Yep. Other than just the derelicts strewn about, it's just me out here now. Alright, so while we go to salvage these guys, let's talk about the major feature coming in 3.18, which is PES, Persistent Entity Streaming. This is actually the reason why 3.18 itself is taking such a long time. And the reason why is because PES tracks everything in Star Citizen. And the goal for CIG is to essentially have PES running in the background and have it feel like it's not really any different than what we're already used to. Because from CIG's perspective, the stated goal really is that when PES is working, you don't really notice it. It's more like it's working in the background. But of course, it's a lot more complicated than that. Because as an example, these derelicts will always persist, which is of course something new. And it's not just for salvage, it also kind of tells a story. A player may roll into this area, whether they're doing the mission like I just did, or they're just exploring, and they will see these wrecks later on and be like, what happened here? Was someone doing a mission? Was there like a duel or a battle? And this is going to be more common throughout the verse. As I gummy worm my character around here, I'm putting on the new salvage attachment onto my multi-tool. I'm going to try to see if I can pull some of this hull from the Buccaneer. But yeah, so now you're going to, and it says, okay, so this is a weird bug I've noticed in this patch. So you see on the top right of my screen here, it says shields active. So when you're trying to salvage or even repair a ship, you have to take the shields down. And even though this ship is soft death, it has no shields. There's no way the shields are even active at this point. The game, for some reason, thinks that the shields are active. So I'm going to go find a different ship and ignore this one. But anyway, so like I said, areas in the game space are now going to tell a story. You may end up coming to a random location in the verse and just see wrecks strewn about because maybe an org was doing some practice PvP against each other, or there was orgs fighting each other, It could be a whole manner of things, and there's going to be stories that can be told with just those wrecks alone, and it's going to be pretty incredible. And that is PES working in the background. Now, you may be asking yourself, okay, well, that makes sense and all, but what does that have to do with this PTU patch taking such a long time to not just go to a wider PTU, because it's currently Wave 1, but also go into a full live release? And the reason why is because PES does require a substantial rewrite of a lot of the code that governs a lot of the stuff that we take for granted here for the servers. For example, 30k protection. Just to recap, 30k protection, if the server ever dies, it takes a snapshot of your ship and then allows you to restore that ship next time you jump onto a server and you try to pull it from an ASOP terminal. Really handy if you're either cargo hauling or you like to live out of your ship. It's really annoying if you'd have to claim your ship every time the server dies. And when we had 318 initially drop on the PTU, we did not have 30k protection. And that is because that code had to be rewritten to work with PES. The same goes for bed logging. Initially, there was no expectation of bed logging actually coming back, but they decided to actually work on it and rewrite the code and kind of improve on that a little bit. It's not quite perfect, but they do have bed logging working again, because again, this type of system has to be rewritten for PES. I love traversing these derelict wrecks. The fire is currently off, but it should come back here in a moment. There we go. It loops for a bit. I love the fire. I wish there was more sound effects and stuff like that, but we'll see. We'll give them some time to improve it. Of course, patch over patch, they're going to be improving these effects and the interior damage, interior fires. It's going to be cool when you smash a ship and the interior is on fire and you're going to have to navigate it, not just trying to fight the crew, but also try not to get yourself burned in the process, trying to avoid, plasma fires and whatnot. It's going to be really, really cool. But we're not at that point yet. But even then, what we have now still looks quite incredible and quite enjoyable. Can I loot this guy? I usually have trouble with Cutlass turret guys. Yeah, I can't quite reach him. And I think it's because, the turret axis is blocking my ability to reach him. Oh well. But yeah, so persistent entity streaming touches everything. And it's not just these little tiny features here and there that have to be rewritten. It's also stability. There is a lot of work that has to go into ensuring that the servers stay stable. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pull some of the hull off of this ship here. You can see that on the interface on my device itself, I actually have a little green dial that ticks down. That's actually the material that's under the crosshair of wherever I'm pointing at here. And you can kind of see it tick down as I start to strip the material away and get the RMC. That's the recycled material composites. And on the top right, you can see how much usable hull there is for me to salvage, and also the container as it fills up. So I not only have the AR UI there that kind of tells me what's going on, but I also have the device's UI dead center of my screen there. And what I'm going to do is just basically pull off all this RMC off of the ship, and I will try to use it to repair my Hornet. It's quite therapeutic. I actually quite enjoy salvaging. It may not be the most exciting for you personally. You may prefer the more exciting aspects such as like PvP dogfighting or whatever, but in terms of like a new industry type field, it is quite interesting. I'm going to go recharge this canister here and get back to you. I want to try to fill up as much of these canisters as I can, just in case I need them for later. But yeah, this wreck here is going to essentially persist forever. Now, there is possibilities of it being cleaned up. They do have what is known as a density manager, which was a new system that was developed for PES. And it's a relatively intelligent system that just kind of looks and says, okay, nobody's been here for quite a long time. I think I'm going to start to clean up some of these wrecks that are here. So this is usually pretty good for server performance. And of course, later down the line, we're going to get munching. So obviously, I'm just, taking off the skin, so to speak, of the ship here. And eventually we will be able to munch the hull of the ship. So while we are just taking off the skin here, I will, for example, in a reclaimer, be able to smash this ship into smaller pieces. So essentially players have the agency to effectively delete ships from the game. It will be profitable for them to do so, so there will be some self-regulation of the servers there to help with performance. And of course, down the road, they will also have NPCs that will be doing it on their own as well. And even on stations, CIG have talked about potentially having like a janitor that goes around and cleans up all those water bottles and cans that get strewn around by players who use them, because those also persist as well. If you drink a water bottle and you decide to drop it on the floor, it's going to stay there unless nobody's come to that station for a long period of time. Then the server may decide to clean it up. Possibly. It just depends on how much traffic has gone through that area. Let's go ahead and swing on some new canisters here and continue filling up more composites in these containers. So yeah, very exciting. And again, this all ties into persistent entity streaming. Everything has to stay persistent. Everything is touched by it now. And it also improves performance. If you've ever done these type of PvE dogfights before, you'll probably notice while I was fighting, the AI weren't teleporting all over the place. Right now, I am pretty much on a full server as I speak right now. And it doesn't feel like it because I'm just out here on my own doing a mission. There is a lot of activity going on this server currently, and even with that amount of stress the server's undergoing, the AI is actually behaving quite well. And this is because of persistent entity streaming. Partially, there's kind of a little bit of an overlap there, but also because I believe there was some new code written to help govern and do some prediction algorithm stuff for players and AI. And there's also a bit of decoupling from server frame rates. I'm not going to pretend I know the engineering aspects behind it. Someone with a lot more knowledge on that could probably explain it. I know there's a few resources you could probably watch out there from CIG who talk about it. But essentially what is happening is the server frame rate no longer fully dictates how well the AI performs, as well as how jittery the ships can be in combat. It still happens from time to time, especially when the server is under extreme load, but currently now it is definitely performing a lot better. You'll notice when I had used my missiles in that fight, the missiles weren't jittering all over the place, which is a behavior we're used to now in 3.17. Okay, I just teleport back into my ship because, you know, it's PTU. It's just how things are. So I'm going to go ahead and start repairing my ship. Of course, I have to turn off the shields, so I went ahead and did that here. And let's jump out and gummy worm a little bit here and try to find our ship. There it is. Immediately I see, yeah, there's your problem right there. Next to my thruster, I got a hull. I'm going to hit B to switch to repair mode and hover my cursor over. You can see the green dial on the bottom there. That is telling me that I have some hull missing there and I can repair it. I can't fully repair the entire section here. Much like when you get an injury on your character, right, and you heal that health back, you will have a section of health that you can't actually heal. You have to actually get medical attention from a facility to actually get full health back and restore some of that limb or whatever part is injured. And the same thing is here. You see, as I hover my cursor over the individual parts of the ship, I can see the individual sections that can't take damage, and I'm just kind of doing a cursory one over to see if anything could use additional repairs. And when I'm restoring armor to that section, I'm actually restoring health to the ship. Currently in game right now, ships operate on a health pool. Eventually that's going to change with physicalized damage modeling. If you ever want to learn more about that, I do have a video on that topic. I definitely recommend you check it out. But yeah, currently right now, all I'm doing is just restoring HP to the hull. Eventually it's going to restore armor. And of course, RMC is not going to be nearly as good. You're actually going to want to have a full repair with proper armor in that spot. But it works as a nice spot job to keep you alive. All right, why don't we wrap things up here, blast this cutlass, and get out of here and scale things up a bit. All right, here we are in the brand new Drake Vulture coming into patch 3.18, which is the entry-level salvaging ship coming in the patch. Now, hand salvaging is the bare minimum you can use to actually get into the actual salvaging field, whereas the Drake Vulture, like I said, it is the entry level for ship salvaging, and it can actually strip entire hulls quite quickly. I'm over here in Yella's asteroid belt because I'm going to be searching for wrecks. There's usually, you know, you got your normal mineable rocks out here, but CAG has also added the occasional wreck site that you can find out here. Sometimes you may find an Avenger Titan, or you will find an Ares Inferno, or even a cluster of debris metals. They're just kind of like chunks of a ship just floating out there. Either way, we're going to go ahead and do some pulses out here and see if we can find a couple of metals while we chat about 3.18. I'm going to go ahead and skip this part real quick and just jump us straight to when we find our first wreck here, because this could take a little while. Just like mining, it could take a little bit to find our first wreck site. So I will be back here shortly. All right, first customer of the day. You can see it has a brand new icon. It's no longer a rock. It looks more like, I guess you could say, a fragmented rock. I don't know. Some people say it looks like a paw print. Either way, it's a new icon, and it is an Avenger Titan that is all out here on its lonesome. So let's go ahead and see if we can make some money from it. I think I'm going to start on... I usually like to start from the flat side, because again, I'm going to be stripping this hole in a much larger scale than I was with hand mining. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M to bring out the salvage tools here. My little salvage arms will pop out. And you can see I have a brand new HUD here showing me some useful information. Most importantly, on the left hand and right hand side is telling me what the arms are currently selected and the current properties for that. Most importantly, here in the bottom center, you can see that I have my actual valid markers here. This is actually showing me where my crosshair is aiming and what material is actually under the crosshair. Valid means that it's valid to pick up. And it also shows how much it has. So just like the hand mining tool, you can actually see how much material there is. On the top, you can see I have how much cargo is available, and that's how much my filler station in the back is filling up before it creates one SCU crate, as well as how much hull is left and the extraction rate. First and foremost, I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to use my mouse wheel while holding Alt, and I can actually create some separation with my tools here. So you can actually create some pretty extreme separation here. Alternatively, I could also bring it back in if I want it to be a lot tighter and focus on a very specific area. I can hold Alt and right click to change it to an upward and downward separation. So now one is going up and the other is going down. This gives you a little bit more flexibility in how you utilize the tool. So you can kind of see here is what it looks like with some separation here. So I can go across like separate sections here. And currently it's probably not the most useful. So I'm going to go ahead and switch here so you can kind of see now this is the horizontal plane. And it may not necessarily be the most useful now. You're probably better off just keeping them kind of close together. It really doesn't matter. But in the future, there's definitely going to be different composites on the ship. And you may want to focus on extracting those composites because they may be more lucrative or they could potentially be more dangerous. We don't know. There's a lot more to it. And as you can see, there's the cargo filling up for that one SCU. It's not my cargo in the back. It is that filler station. You see on here, I have some interesting information, including the diameter of the current head I'm using, the speed, and its efficiency. So I have the cinch, and then this is the braid. And you can see that the diameter is different, the speed is different, and the efficiency is different. So the braid is a much wider conical area that can pick up a lot more material. You can see how my extraction rate at the top center there, it kind of flits between about 3 or 4, and then in some of the juicy areas it can go up to like 12. If I switch to the cinch, smaller area of effect, but the extraction rate is much slower. So I usually like to stick with the braid because it's a wider area and it does fill up my filler station a lot faster. Currently, there's not a whole lot of nuance with it simply because we are just picking up generic RMC. Again, in the future, this will probably change, but currently right now, you really just want to stick with whatever has the highest extraction rate, and that's going to be for right now the braid. And as you can see, it is filling up quite quickly. I'm already about halfway to making my first SCU box. Once again, I'm paying attention to the 2 small circles at the bottom there that is saying valid. It's showing how much material is under there. Once the material starts to wane, I can start to kind of slowly move off of that area and kind of just sweep over here and take some of these pieces off of the ship until I get my first canister made out here, or my first SCU crate, I should say. And yeah, it's relatively straightforward. There's really not much more to it. A lot of people have kind of analogize this to like Power Wash Simulator, and they're not wrong. It's quite simplistic in that form. It's very easy to use, and it can be quite therapeutic as well. It's very, very chill and relaxing. Much like mining, though mining can be a little bit more stressful. All right, filler station is now ejecting its first 1 SCU crate. I'm going to go ahead and switch to my cinch here. I'm going to wait for that filler station to finish ejecting, because if I don't, it is going to waste some of this composite. Okay, so now we're ready to start hoovering up some additional material. I'm just going to kind of do a cursory run through, make sure I collect anything that's left over. Again, it could be kind of difficult to see how much material is left, so you want to pay attention to the 2 circles at the bottom. That is telling you how much hull is left underneath your current crosshair. And as I sweep over, it's pretty much almost 0. There's some spots here or there that may be kind of still missing, but for the most part looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this side here because there's still material here I haven't collected. the very top of the hull. You can also see that as I hover my cursor over the individual sections, you can see those subsections of the ship. It's very similar to the wireframe that we're used to in our self-status MFD. In fact, actually, it's identical to it. Those are the individual sections, and you can see that the coloration changes from green to yellow to red, and that's actually the health of the ship going down. As I'm stripping this material, I am essentially stripping the health of this ship down. Even if a ship is in the soft death state, I am still pulling health away from the stricken ship. Let's go ahead and pull all this material down. I probably will not be able to make a second crate. There's just not enough material on this guy here. If I come across one of the Infernos, they're going to be a lot better because there's tons of armor on the Inferno, which translates into tons more RMC, which means more profit. Of course, you can always get a bigger ship too as well. There's C2s and 890s that you can find out in any of the Lagrange points right now, but I'm just using yellow just because I like the look of yellow. And it's just an example here as we talk about 318. Not too crazy about making money here. I got plenty of money. This is just an example. Switching to my cinch, I'm just going to kind of gently scrape away some of the harder to reach areas here, like the edges, and make sure I am collecting as much as I can. There's some visual oddities where you'll still see some stuff hanging out there in the back, but it's not too crazy. It's usually just kind of like a visual leftover. It's not actual gameplay material left behind. It's just kind of a visual thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and find us a new crate. Not crate, excuse me. Find us a new wreck to salvage. I will be right back. All right, second customer on scope. Let's go ahead and check him out as we come in here. Can't quite see him just yet. It is looking like it is an Inferno, which is good for us because Infernos are worth a lot more in RMC. You'll see the difference here as I scrape the section of just the top section of this alone. You'll see how quickly it will fill up the RMC, and that is again because the Inferno is chock full of armor, which translates into a lot more RMC extraction here. Now, the Avenger Titan also has a lot of armor as well, but nowhere near as much as an Inferno does. Inferno is a very lucrative target to go after here. So let's go ahead and... I can't seem to control my beams. Weird little bug. I can't seem to control the beams. Let me switch to the abrade. Just turn this off and turn it back on, because that always works. And what do you know it does? See? Turning things on and off is always the solution to everything. And now we are back into making some money. You can see the extraction rate is a lot higher now. Using the abrade, catching some of these parts of the wings. I'm about to finish off the second crate here, and you're going to see it's going to say filler station obstructed. That is because it is, well, obstructed. One SU crate is now sitting in front of the filler station and it cannot create anymore. So we have to go into the back and we have to manually move it. And this part of the Vulture has been criticized a bit by the community. You see, when you're doing mining, you don't really have to move anything. It's just all automatic. But on the Vulture, when you're trying to do salvaging, you have to manually move stuff. You can see here that my panel is showing that it is obstructed because the 1SU crate is actually here. So I do need to move this. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my tool here. Now I'm going to switch it over to my tractor beam attachment. There we go. Give it a second for the server to catch up. But yeah, now I have to physically move this over into the cargo area using the new snapping mechanics coming in with the cargo refactor here. So now I can just snap it into place. And then I'm going to hit eject, and that will give you my extra 1SU crate. There it is. And this is a little bit time consuming, not a whole lot, but it is definitely a time sink in comparison to mining. You can actually see here, it collects RMC. There's a thing on the top there that shows how much. And if I click here, you can see that it actually shows me the materials that I can actually make using RMC. I can make multi-tools, the tractor beams, the Cambio Light SRT, as well as the canisters. So if you do forget to bring those with you, you can actually craft them using some of the RMC. I do believe they will. This is not going to be a thing that will be coming in the future. It's not going to be like a permanent thing. This is, I think, if I recall, is supposed to be temporary. And that's because if you do want to manufacture those tools, there's going to be a much more complicated system to that. But they kind of want to add it now, both as a convenience factor and as an easier way of kind of like testing these new mechanics. It's unclear if it's going to be a permanent thing. Like I said, I think they said that it is just a temporary thing. It will change in the future, but we'll see. For now, it's pretty cool that you can actually manufacture those items if you forget them. All right, let's go ahead and start sweeping up more of this material. And let's see here. Grab this guy here. I'm just going to keep the abrade on and just kind of polish off this section here. You can see the extraction rate is relatively decent. Right now I'm focusing on the hull. The above section of where I'm pointing at is actually the main engine, and I can't actually extract anything from that because that's actually an engine part. Currently with Salvage, you actually cannot extract components like thrusters, engines, weapons. You can clearly see that it's highlighted because in the future we will be able to extract these parts, but currently as it stands right now we cannot. So I can just hover over it and you can see that there's some material on it, but I can't actually take it. Let's go ahead and clear up some of the cockpit area here. Decent extraction rate. It could be a lot better, but I think because this derelict is decently damaged, there's not a whole lot of material. But you can see how I've only done about half of this section here and I already have one crate that is almost ready to go here. There's the other engine. I'm just going to kind of go around the edges here in a nice zigzag pattern. There's the gun. I can't extract anything from the gun because, again, it is a component that will come much later. Coming up on the first SU crate. There it is. Now, I can continue to extract here, you see, as the station is ejecting. You will lose that material, unfortunately. If the filler station is in the middle of extraction while you are pulling the materials off like I was just doing there, the materials that you had just pulled off of the ship will be lost. So make sure that when you are actually doing this salvaging run here and you're pulling the materials off of the ship, that if the filler station is extracting, you turn off the beams. So that way you are trying to maximize the amount of material you are pulling off. Really nice high extraction rate up here, up to about 9 SEUs per second, or 0.0009 SEUs per second, I should say. Decent extraction rate, and looks like we have picked clean this whole section, so about a crate and a half here just for one section. I'm just gonna cinch really quick just to make sure I clean up any little tiny hard to reach areas, just to make sure that I'm being thorough. And looks like I got most of the material on this side. Looking pretty solid. Let's go ahead. I'm going to turn off the salvage mode real quick. Let's switch to the other side. Looks really cool when you strip things down. There's some textured tiling you can kind of see there, which is a little bit odd. I do hope that they kind of improve on that because the tiling does kind of look a little bit cheesy. But ultimately, it still looks really, really cool seeing the gubbins inside the ship. Ultimately, it's really, really cool. I quite enjoy this. Engine is there. Switch to a braid. Let's get the rest of this wing from the sections that I didn't pull off. A little bit of material here or there. But most of this is going to be in that midsection I didn't get to. We're going to go ahead and pull this off. We're about almost ready for this next crate here. I'm going to cinch this real quick, see if I can get some of these little tiny nooks here. The bottom section I tend to have like a little bit more trouble pulling some material in the corners off. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's kind of specific to the fact that there's kind of these little deeper crevices in the bottom section. So sometimes like along this like crease along the bottom section here, I'd like to cinch it just to be sure that I'm being a little bit more thorough. Switching back to the abrade, we're just going to go ahead and start removing most of this material. I'm almost ready for another crate here. And there we go. Filler station is obstructed. I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off real quick, and let's pop out into the back. But yeah, it's entirely very straightforward. That is really all it comes down to, is just this kind of back and forth of just stripping material off and then moving back to the aft section of the ship here and moving the crates to where they need to be and playing a little bit of Tetris. Like I said, many people in the community have criticized it a little bit because it is a lot more involved process than, say, a prospector when a prospector mines, because when you're pulling material from an asteroid field as you're mining, it just goes straight into the saddlebags. You don't have to get out of your seat to move materials around. In the future, you probably will have to actually eject those saddlebags if you're doing a larger scale operation or whatever, but still it's relatively automated. So a lot of people were kind of miffed that it's this manual setup. Who knows, maybe down the line we'll get another entry-level-ish type ship that will have more automated features, and the Vulture will be a much more cheaper solution than that ship. We'll see what they do. I do hope that CIG decides to make competitors for a lot of different types of ships. Like, for example, we have the MISC Prospector. I would love to see another entry-level ship made by a different manufacturer and be kind of a competitor to that ship. Because originally the Prospector was meant to be the entry-level mining ship, but it had a built-in filter that made it unique in that it was able to filter out a lot of the unusable materials, or at least a decent amount of it. It seems like that kind of got lost to the wayside and was kind of made more of a module for the mining heads instead. So that unique level, that layer that was given to the Prospector is kind of lost, and it's kind of just a generic mining ship now. But it would be really cool if CIG made more entry-level ships that were able to mine and had different unique properties that made them better or worse than, say, the Prospector. I'm really hoping that at some point CIG does decide to make competing entry-level ships. And not even just entry levels, just general ships all around. It would be really nice to have ships that are in the same field and compete. For example, we have the Constellations and the 400 Eyes that kind of fit in that same field, right? They're competitors to each other. Same with the Cutlass and the new Spirit coming out, and to some degree with the MSR, right? They are kind of competing with each other. They both are kind of like in that medium freight field, but one is a data runner and the other one is capable of also being like a bomber or something like that. And the other one is just a dedicated medium freighter with a little bit more guns on it, right? Like there's these little bits of differences, and I'm hoping that for the entry-level ships, for the utility aspects of it, like mining and salvaging, that we will see other manufacturers in that space at some point. I really hope so, and I'm sure they probably are looking at it, but we will see. All right, immediately we got a new customer on scope. Let's go ahead and burn forward and inspect them. Now, of course, none of this really is possible without persistent entity streaming. I've talked about this already prior in this video, but I mean, it touches every aspect, and Salvage cannot exist without it. You have to understand that PES, like I said, touches everything from the tiny little water bottle on your ship all the way to the massive Idris that is shooting its laser projectiles at you. Everything is now being tracked, and again, this is why it's taking so long for them to get it to our hands. There are so many moving parts, so many things that have to get rewritten, and it's hard to kind of get it back into that one-to-one state we're used to on 3.17, getting it to that same feel. Indeed, like when I say this game is tracking everything, I'm not joking. I have been flying with FH in 3.18 now in the PTU for a while, and sometimes we would do fun stuff, low fly or whatever, or sometimes we would have a crash, something would happen. For example, we'd had like a Pisces that would like crash, and the new Pisces R comes with a bunch of medical equipment and some food and water, and anytime it gets destroyed, all that food and water gets dropped onto the floor wherever it's at, and that gets tracked. We have literally died in a Pisces and then come back later to recover our bodies, and the Pisces wreckage is still there. The water bottles and food and medical stuff is also strewn around the area and is still there for you to pick up as well. So if you do see a wreck site as you fly past, whether it's a player or NPC, there is a reason to check it out. You may come across a player's body or an NPC. You could loot it. There may be items that were on the ship. So for example, a Redeemer comes pre-stock with items in it. Might be worth taking if you need it. So if you need a water bottle because you've been dogfighting all day and your character's thirsty, it might be worth checking that wreck site. You might come across a water bottle. It's actually quite interesting. It makes you think more about this kind of stuff because we've never really had this before. We never really had wrecks that persist. Usually stuff just blows up and immediately just disappears. Now it will stay there for the most part almost indefinitely, which makes things a lot more interesting. Indeed, we've been doing Xenothreat testing in the PTU because they've wanted to really push the servers to its max. And one of the weirdest things you have to pay attention to is the amount of wrecks left behind. And I'm not talking about the wrecks that you have to do the missions for. I'm talking about wrecks of like dead players and NPCs. Now they are just all over the place. And when you're trying to do these high-paced dogfights, all of a sudden it feels much more claustrophobic and much more dangerous because there is just trash strewn about the place that can completely destroy you or get you caught up. And indeed, even I saw some NPCs crash into some debris, and it was just very chaotic. It adds this level of just crazy detail to the game. And of course, if you are someone who is interested in making money off of this, you can just wait for the mission to end, pull your Vulture or your Reclaimer out, and actually just hop in and start making money extracting the goods from that spot. I will not put it past many orgs, including our own, who will be doing operations after Xenothreat, trying to essentially strip salvage a lot of the ships that were left behind after the Xenothreat mission. And there probably will be battles between these orgs because they will want to fight each other for control over the dead Idris that spawn. And if the Javelin goes down too, I'm pretty sure the Javelin wreck is going to stay behind as well. That is also going to be pretty profitable for your Reclaimers. So you may want to stick around after Xenothreat happens, and you may end up seeing battles afterwards as organizations or even independent parties start to fight each other for control over the wrecks because they want to maintain the profitability there and take as much as they can get and get out and sell it. It's going to be quite interesting, going to be quite fun, and it's just going to add a lot more interest and detail to the universe. It just adds that level of more nuance, believability, it adds a story, it just adds more depth to our sandbox, and I'm all for it. But of course, it's not something that could just be built in a day. It took them a long time to get us to this point, and of course it's going to take just a little bit longer for us to keep testing it until we actually can get it out of PTU and into the live service. Again, like I said, very similar to when we had 3.0. I was around back when 3.0 first came out. That was what I remember we all deemed it the content drought because it was a long process before 3.0 came out. Remember, at the time prior to 3.0, we didn't have planets we could land on. They were essentially just these lifeless little orbs that if you flew close to, if you were able to get close to it, because it took a while to get to them, you would just blow up because you couldn't land on it or anything. There was no place to actually land on these moons. And then when 3.0 came out, we had the new planet tech, and that was a whole new kettle of fish we had to learn, as well as that was new tech that had to be written for it. And it had its own teething issues, but it took a while before it got into our hands. And many of the people who were Evocati back then explained how even their earliest versions of the game ran so poorly because it was not optimized to get into the wider PTU and to the live servers. So it took them a while to clean that up. And with PES, it's quite a monumental task getting this ready because remember, this is all needed for server meshing. So of course, this is also going to take a lot of work for them to adjust it, getting things ready, as well as doing far more stress testing and back-end hotfixes. I mean, even in the most recent live stream, they actually have mentioned that there's probably going to be a 3.18.1 because even when this goes live, there's still some stuff that they want to spend more time working on and cleaning up and perfecting. So don't expect 3.18 even when it goes out there to be 100% perfect. There are probably still going to be issues. Of course, they're trying to adhere to their deadlines as best as they possibly can, despite the fact that they missed the original December deadline they had for this patch. They do have, of course, internal deadlines that they're trying to maintain. I believe some people are saying that it's going to be like February, early February, we will get 3.18 live. We'll see how that goes. And if that is the case and there's still major issues or lingering issues, little polish stuff, then that is the reason why they're going to have a 3.18.1. They're going to need that extra time to finish mopping up those issues. Speaking of mopping things up, here we have another Inferno that we can get through. So what else is coming in 3.18? I mean, we've talked about, of course, Salvage and PES, but it's a lot more than that. And I think one of the other aspects coming in 3.18 that is got a lot of people excited is the new Gen 12 renderer. Now, for the uninitiated, Gen 12 just means that Star Citizen is getting an update to its primary renderer, to the new Gen 12 renderer tech. There's also going to be integration of Vulkan. I do not believe it's not fully implemented. I'm not 100% certain the entire technical aspect behind it. I do know that the Gen 12 renderer has been brought in. Most of the rendering aspect of the game has been updated to the new Gen 12 renderer, which improves performance and just makes frame rates consistent across the board. This has been corroborated by my org mates, many of which have very different systems. Some of them have lower end and others have higher end systems like mine. And all of us across the board have reported much more higher frame rates, much more consistent frame rates, and also just a better gaming experience overall. Some people I've seen both in Spectrum and even in our org have stated that the game feels a lot better looking, or it seems like it looks a lot crisper. I think that may be the case in some aspects. Maybe they've tweaked some stuff here or there. I know that we have the new window shader tech that was added to the rest of the landing sites in the game. There's also additional improvements to like the atmospheric re-entry effects and whatnot. I do know that it seems like they've done a lot more improvement to the ground clutter that you see on moons. Like DAYMAR looks incredible now. But beyond some of those visual changes that are not really involved with the renderer 100%, I think overall what people are actually noticing is more of a feel than what they're actually seeing. And what I mean by that is that performance is a lot higher for them, or at least more consistent, and therefore the game feels and plays much better for them, and in turn the visual fidelity that we all love and enjoy is just that much more enjoyable. It's not quite a placebo effect, it's more of just the effect of having a much better running game than we're used to in the past, and it feels better and thus makes the game also, I guess in a way, look better, despite the fact that it is just mostly performing better. But yeah, I mean, because I've looked through all my footage and it looks roughly the same as 3.17. Again, the main real difference is just the frame rate. So at least that's where my mind is at right now currently. So beyond just Gen 12, we have tons of other stuff, of course, including like inventory, quality of life. So if you are a loot goblin like myself, you'll know that in 3.18 we are getting a move all button finally, as well as being able to shift click items into our inventory, making things a little bit easier on us when we want to move mass quantity of items rapidly. So for example, if your home base is Orison and then you want to go to Tressler and move a lot of ship parts or weapons or whatever you need to move, the move all button makes it much more simpler. You can also just shift click. It's not perfect. There's still some weird issues where if you try to move large quantities with the move all button, sometimes it just fails. If you are in the PT right now and you have that issue, the quick workaround is literally just shift click some of the items, break it down, and then try the move all again. In my experience, it seems to be like some of the ammo mags tend to be very finicky about doing the move all. So hopefully they'll address that soon. But even with these small little issues, it is a huge, huge improvement. They've also added a cool little thing that kind of went under the radar, which is the item port helper. And that is just, it shows where all the item ports are on your character all at once. So if you want to have a quick glance, for example, at how many rounds you have left in the mags that are currently equipped on your character, you can just hit that button and you can quickly see that. You can also see other slots that you haven't filled out yet. It's really, really useful. I do hope they expand that a little bit more, because right now I can't tell what is in the actual port itself. I can't tell what type of mag it is or ammo or anything like that. So I do hope that they expand that a little bit better to make it easier to identify quickly what you have on you or what you don't have on you. Other things coming into the patch, of course, is the cargo rework. I've already touched on this in the past. It is just a huge refactor to the cargo system. We're able to move things to and from the cargo grids relatively seamlessly. It is really useful for salvagers. Not really a huge issue right now currently for haulers too much. Except unless you're a pirate, then it's pretty useful because you can pull things off your ship pretty quick. But for the most part, haulers don't have to worry about it too much. Eventually down the road, we are going to have cargo timers and additional manual loading of cargo, and that is going to be a factor of gameplay for cargo haulers. They're going to have to be able to move their cargo to and from the ports that they're at onto their ship or off their ship, or they can pay NPCs for that. But that's not in yet, so it's not a huge, huge change, but it is quite a lovely one, especially for pirates and salvagers. I mean, what else? Well, the 600i got a huge health buff. So for you 600i owners out there, I'm sure that is a wonderful bit of news there. So the 600i can actually, withstand a good fight now, which is quite cool. The other stuff that's coming out is, of course, the Derelict outposts. We originally had them in Microtech. Now they've been strewn around the Stanton a little bit more. And we have a lot more around, especially the Crusader area. So more importantly, the newest one that came out is Whistler's Crypt, which is a really, really cool crash site for an old 600i and Mercury Star Runner. And it has a ton of Ninetales guarding it. It's a lot of fun to do a group mission there because there is the huge amount of Ninetales guarding it, and also there is AI reinforcements that come in a Cutlass. And then, of course, around the rest of like Crusader and its moons, there's a lot more other abandoned outposts similar to the ones in Microtech, which have AI guarding them and also get Cutlass reinforcements as well. So make sure if you're doing the new retrieval op missions that take you there, that you bring a ship that is well armed and prepared, as well as you come yourself well armed and prepared, because the AI, like I said before, are a little bit more decoupled from the server frame rate, so they are much more responsive. So if you're used to the derpy AI we've had in the past where they don't respond very well, you're going to get blasted immediately. So tractor beams and the occasional assault rifle is going to be your best friend going in there. Of course, you have to be very careful if you leave your ship unattended doing those missions, because again, the Cutlass reinforcement will come in and that turret gunner is going to chew you up if you're not careful. So maybe bring some friends. We also now have 40 more rivers added to the game. These include new ones added to Microtech, but also Hurston now has rivers. This also comes with the update to the river tech itself. So now Microtech has a river with a really steep cliffside and new assets to go with it. It looks incredible. Unfortunately, there's no sounds, at least currently right now in the current build that I've been playing. There's no sounds when you're actually in there. The normal river and the lakes tend to have some audio to them, but the cliffside ones don't have any yet. I'm assuming that they haven't added that to that toolset just quite yet. Also, the Hurston one is still very much in a tier 0 phase. It's not quite the best looking in comparison to the Microtech ones, and of course that is because the Microtech ones have been developed for a lot longer. They have more assets available to them, whereas the Hurston ones don't have a whole lot of unique assets tied to them quite yet. So more subsequent patches will improve on that later. Regardless, though, I can't wait to actually utilize this for some of our sandbox operations in the Forgotten Heralds. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially the cliff ones on Microtech. I can't wait to do some sniper duels with some of my org mates. I think that's going to be an absolute blast. And of course, you guys will all see it when that comes out. Additionally, racing has gotten quite a bump. There are new racing tracks in Verse now. There's quite a few of them that you can actually take part in, and they're actually quite a lot of fun. I highly recommend, even if you don't have a racing ship, just to go and find those racetracks and just do them anyway. It doesn't matter whether you get the platinum trophies or not. Just go try them out. They're a lot of fun. The assets that they created for it and how they structured it are gorgeous. They are a blast to fly through the rings. It's pretty funny when you fly through the racetracks and you just see just wrecks everywhere from other players that have beefed it into the side of the hills and whatnot. They are a lot of fun, and like I said, I recommend try it out. Just when it drops, go and check it out. Fly whatever ship, even if you have an Aurora, just go have fun with it. Check it out. It's really, really cool. The other aspects that have changed recently, of course, are some quality of life improvements for the law system. So now if you get a crime stat 1 or 2, it's no longer an instant death for your character anymore. Previously, if you so much has had a crime stat 1 on your character, which could be anything from like a parking violation or something like that, your character would always be marked for death at that point. Your ship would turn red, AI NPCs would attack you, and of course players who were willing to get into a scrap would immediately go after you as well. This was really annoying for things like Xenothreat or even, Siege of Orison as well, right? Because if you attacked a player by accident, maybe they charged you for aggravated assault or whatever. Now there's a possibility that, in the current builds, if that happened, your ship would turn red. If, turrets would start attacking you. It just created so much headache. So now they've made it so that way if you have a crime stat 1 or 2, those are all mostly just finable offenses. So you just pay them off and you're good to go. You can, of course, just surrender and go to Klesher and get that taken care of. But if you don't want to, you can pay the fines. They are quite steep fines. But at least now, if you have a crime stat 1 or 2, it's not an instant death sentence anymore. When you do get a crime stat 3 or above, though, that is when you start getting bounty hunters after you, and of course it's when you're basically marked for death for the server at that point. On top of those improvements, of course, we now have improvements to prison activities for the prison system of Klesher. So we have updates to the activity systems there. The merit systems have been adjusted. They're not quite as overpowered as they were before. Merits are a little bit harder to collect now. But on that note, though, they added the ability to surrender contraband in the prisons now, which you can collect from normal loot sources. So if you collect key cards, other weapons, like, for example, you collect knives, like the shanks or whatever like that, you can actually surrender those to get a couple bit of merits there. And if you're wondering where you can get them, well, they have new NPCs that spawn there and you can attack them. Of course, if you attack them while you are in the range of a comm you will get additional time put onto your sentence. But if you go into the dead zones and you find NPCs or even players there and you attack, you either knock them out or kill them, you can take their stuff with pretty much no repercussions. So there's a lot more going on there that you can definitely have fun with. Of course, there's the new missions in the prisons that you can do now to instantly clear your stats, which is a lot of fun. Now, I don't really want to spoil too much, but all you have to do is just go to a dead zone deep in the mines and you'll get contacted with a mission. Once you have collected that mission, it's actually quite difficult and a little bit time consuming, but once you have done it, you will have your crime stat fully cleared and you'll also have access to a ship to escape with. It's actually really, really cool. Highly recommend you check it out. I don't want to spoil it too much. Definitely go check it out yourself if you end up finding yourself in prison. It's actually quite easy to get the mission. It can be hard to complete though, so good luck. On that note though, let's say you do want to escape and clear your stat in the traditional way that we've all known, which is to go to like a security post or SPK. Well, of course, SPK, Security Post KAREAH, has now been updated to the new version of Security Post KAREAH, as well as you can no longer clear your crime stat at any of the other security posts like you could in the past. Security Post KAREAH is now the only place in the entire system where you can actually clear your crime stat, which makes things a lot more challenging and difficult, because now when you go there, there are now Crusader security guards patrolling the area in large groups, as well as the station defenses have been beefed up. She has a brand new coat of paint, and there's also elite guards that also patrol the area, including the security commander who's got quite a bit of health. So on top of players wanting to gun for you because you may have a bounty or you're an escapee, there's also going to be the added danger of having to deal with NPCs. One cool factor they added, though, is the fact that when you're trying to clear your stat, clearing individual crimes is actually a lot faster now. Unless you're an escapee. If you're an escapee, that actually can take quite a long time to clear that stat. But once you've cleared it, it clears the entirety of your crime stat. So even if you're a CS5 and you're an escapee, if you clear the escaped convict crime that you have under your name, if you spend the long amount of time it takes to clear that, you will be free once that one stat has been removed. Of course, you don't have to go there just to clear your stat. You can also go there for profit. There is now the evidence lockup that's actually at the security post now. It's kind of like a mini JUMPTOWN. Basically, you go there, you find the security boss, you eliminate him, and you get the code that he has on him, and you use that to open the evidence lockup. Once you've opened the evidence lockup, you can start to spawn. Right now, currently, it's about 15 boxes in sequential order, and each box will drop something very lucrative. Sometimes it's something silly like a basketball or whatever, but other times you get like a blue evidence box, which is worth like hundreds of thousands of credits. In our experience, unfortunately, when we tried to sell it, it didn't work. I think it was just a bug, but hopefully they've already addressed that. I know people have actually successfully sold them before. They also have some quite unique drugs in there too that are worth quite a lot of money. So if you're in it for the profit and you don't care about being a criminal about it, it is definitely a place you can go, and it's also going to spawn a lot of PvP because once you start the attack, other players will be given a mission where they will want to have to come and stop you for profit of their own. Speaking of JUMPTOWN, JUMPTOWN itself, the actual JUMPTOWN, actually got an update as well. It's known as JUMPTOWN 2.1. The mission itself is still the same, but the actual drug labs themselves have been fully updated to be a little bit more forgiving for first-person shooter players. In the past, the old JUMPTOWN was just a single airlock facility that had some really cool defensive sightlines and whatnot, but there really wasn't any point in fighting both either outside or even inside, because if you had defenders on the inside, they would almost always win in defense because of the single airlock. Now with the new JUMPTOWN 2.1 now, they actually have 2 airlocks, as well as some skylines and 2 routes that go around the facility on the interior, which is really, really fun. It adds a lot more interest, it adds a lot more defensive sightlines, and just adds way, way, way more interest to the overall aspect of fighting indoors. JUMPTOWN has been updated in that aspect. The exterior also has been updated, of course. In our testing, infantry can actually survive in the center of JUMPTOWN, in the exterior, from bombs from an A2. As long as the A2 doesn't get a direct hit directly on top of the facility, any bombs that are on the adjacent exterior sides, infantry can actually survive by getting inside the center, which is actually really cool. So now there's actually a place to shelter if somebody does decide to drop bombs on your position. If you're trying to defend from the exterior, now you can just go to the center and shelter in place, and as long as the bomb doesn't land directly on top of the facility, you will survive, if not get knocked on your feet or get hurt. But we really didn't experience that. We, in our testing, found that, you know, you could survive so long as the bomb was around the exterior. If it's too close to the facility or even directly on top of it, though, you're toast. Everybody inside will be fine, but if you're on the outside, you will be just flattened easily. But it is kind of cool that they added that small little fix or kind of change there to kind of add a little bit of LOSing to protect you from the bombs, explosions, or anything else for that matter, especially if you don't have a railgun and ships start to come in and start annihilating the rooftops that you may be on. You have a place you can kind of squirrel into. It's actually really cool. So that's definitely a huge improvement, and I look forward to doing a lot more of that with JUMPTOWN 2.1 coming into live. But circling back around, God, there's so much stuff coming into this patch. Restricted areas got an update. So if you fly into restricted area in the live version, you get that autopiloting that pushes you away, and half the time it kills you anyway. Well, now what happens instead is you get an alert and you get a timer to get out of the area. If you don't, you will be stored, and your ship will basically be impounded, and then you will have to pay a fine to get it back. If you do go way too far into the restricted area, it won't even wait for the timer to finish. It'll just immediately impound you. So that's a nice change. It does give you a little bit of that extra wiggle room to kind of get closer to buildings and stuff like that. Because before, like I said, you would just get autopiloted away, and the autopilot would just bug out and half the time would just kill you. So it was just worthless. So that change is a nice little quality of life improvement. Geez, I forgot to talk about the PTV track. Circling back to racing, PTV track is a new thing added to ORISON. So if you go to the new Vision Center, it's not really the new Vision Center, it's just the updated version of the Vision Center currently. Whenever there's no convention going on, you can go to the PTV racetrack, which is a lot of fun. There's no missions or anything like that tied to it. It's just a complete sandbox race that you can do just as by yourself if you want to time yourself. Which, God, brings me to the fact that there's a timer now that you can actually map in the game. You can map a timer for your HUD now. So you can do timers for the PTV track or even just the general racetracks in the game, or whatever you want to time, they have that available. But anyway, back to the PTV tracks. You can do those with your friends. You can do them by yourself. It's a really beautiful track. It's a lot of fun. PTVs are a little bit weird to race. The grip and handling is not the greatest. Maybe they'll change that later, either the physics, or maybe they'll give us a different track later. I would love to take the STVs for a race. That would be pretty cool. So maybe they'll add that later if they have more free time in their hands to do that. But yeah, I apologize if I feel like I'm talking super fast, because this video has gone on way too long as it is. There's just so much to talk about here. And I do want to fill out this vulture before we wrap things up here. Gosh, what else do we want to talk about? Oh, of course, the changes to ORISON. So ORISON now has a reduction in the height that you actually have to reach before you're allowed to quantum travel away. It's now 90,000 meters, where it was like, I think, was it 160 or 190,000 or something like that? I don't know, because I avoided ORISON like the plague in the previous updates, simply for almost that particular reason alone, as well as for performance reasons. But now that's been changed, so I may make ORISON my home at this point, because, oh, hey, here's a cluster of salvageable materials. Really quick, this is one of the other new things that you can actually find for salvage, is there's just like chunks of metal, kind of similar to like if you find like a mother lode quant, you know, when you're out mining, you can find like mother lodes, which is basically just like a bunch of quantanium rocks in a big group. And you have the same thing here. This is kind of like the mother lode. These little like chunks actually have quite a lot of material that you can get out of it. It's really good, a quick way to fill out your hole. But anyway, back to ORISON. Gosh, there's like so much to talk about. Yeah, so its height has been reduced for quantum travel, making it a much easier location to quantum travel both into and out to, because you're in, when you quantum into it, it's actually much closer now, so you're not spending, 2 years trying to fly to it and 2 years trying to get out of it. So if you do love Orison, but you hate that you can't quantum until you get super far away, you have to spend like 50 minutes basically trying to get out of the atmosphere. That's been adjusted, so I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that. On top of also the changes for Orison, now there's also new mercenary missions for Orison. They are called the, off the top of my head, Assault on Orison. So essentially they're just the same bunker missions that you're used to, but now they're using the Siege of Orison platforms. So when Siege of Orison is not going on, and if you have mercenary missions unlocked for Crusader, you now get access to Assault on Orison missions where you can actually fly directly to those platforms, and one of the towers for any of those given platforms will have AI in there. It's I don't know off the top of my head how many there are. In my experience, I've come across like 15 per platform. And you just go through, you just clear out that tower from top to bottom, clear out all the AI, and then that's it, you're done. That's it, there's nothing else to it. It's basically just like a bunker mission, except it's just the Siege of Orison platforms and everything that entails, as well as all the loot and whatnot from those areas. It's really cool, and of course in the future they're planning on, oh god, this box is, ooh, lag. Box is giving me a headache. I may have to play a little bit of Tetris here. So again, this is, cargo refactor stuff right here. So this snapping is going to make it easier for me to kind of move things around here. There we go. I think I'm going to fill out one more box because you can actually sell loose containers, even though it's not going to be on the cargo grid. That loose container I will be able to sell though. But yeah, so those Assault on Orison missions are just mercenary missions that you can do for a decent chunk of change, dealing with now the updated AI improvements on there. And what I mean by updated AI is not just the fact that, like I mentioned, they are performing better, but also there is some new loadout improvements for AI and just general AI behavior improvements. Just as a small example, AI that use the Devastator shotgun, that's that energy shotgun that you can charge up, the AI actually will do that now. They will actually charge that shotgun if they're using it. This is most notable in the new SPK, where the Crusader security guards actually utilize that quite a bit. So it's actually kind of cool when you're assaulting the new SPK as a criminal and then you hear the guards charging their shotgun waiting for you to come around the corner. It's actually really, really cool to hear and kind of experience now. On top of that, bunker locations have been updated with new AI loadouts. General landing locations have been updated with NPCs with new loadouts that kind of match their locations and whatnot. And the bunkers, like I said, are going to be the ones that benefit the most from it. Security AI now have new uniforms, especially for Crusader. They have more updated uniforms. They even have some like plainclothes style guards that have pistols. It's actually really cool to see them like in a fight. So it's really just, those little small quality of life changes and little, polish here and there. And while it seems such a small thing, it's one of those things that where you pop in and you see it and you're like, wow, that's actually kind of cool. I quite like seeing that, guy with his pistol trying to defend the security post. It's one of those little tiny things that makes the game feel great. And it's really cool to see them put it into this patch. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all there is to cover. There's definitely a lot more I could talk about. We've already mentioned like soft death. I mean, soft death is utterly terrifying. When you experience it yourself. We've kind of, done PvP and testing and stuff like that, and soft death is like an utterly terrifying experience, especially when you're in gravity. It is incredible. They are planning on adding new ejection mechanics now, because if you eject on a planet, you're pretty much dead. There's no way to save yourself now, so they have mentioned, CAG have mentioned that they do want to start working on some mechanics for ejection and escape pods. I think escape pods are probably going to come in first before they have proper systems for survivability of ejecting from single-seaters. We'll see how that goes. Not sure how that's going to entail. There's a lot of, talk about that, but, no, nothing's set in stone. All right. Well, that pretty much covers it, folks. There's a lot going on in this patch. I got a full vulture here that I need to sell, and I'm sure you all probably want to get going yourself. I mean, whether you have access to this patch or not, I don't know. Whenever this video goes live, maybe the PTU is finally open to everybody, or maybe not. I don't know. CIG is definitely taking their time trying to improve this as much as they possibly can. to get it into everyone's hands. So if you're one of the players that has been very patient for this patch, be mindful that your patience probably it absolutely is going to pay off, because this patch has definitely been a huge nightmare getting the issues sorted. It's been obviously in the cooker for quite a long time here. And when it finally gets into your hands, hopefully it will definitely be a lot more stable. And because it's going to be chock full of these new features, it is going to be an absolute blast. So like I said, if you're not a subscriber, if you are not a concierge, or any of the, the factors that lead you into the wave 1 right now where you can't have access to it, be patient. I think you're going to be well rewarded, because this patch is probably one of the best patches we've had in a long time. Like I said, it's one of the biggest patches since 3.0. And if you haven't been around since the days of 3.0, boy, that was a big change. Like I said, that was back when we first got planets in, landable planets in game. And 3.18, while PES, hopefully I've laid out how extensive PES is, it's really the same thing in terms of how big of a technical achievement this is and how much fun gameplay it adds to, on top of everything else that I've talked about. All right, folks, that is it for me today. I'm going to go ahead and sell some of this salvage. I will really quickly cut to show you guys, because I know a lot of you ask about how much these cargo runs for salvage generally go for. So I'm going to go ahead and, once I come into ORISON, I'm just going to cut when I get to the TDD, and I will show you. So I will be right back, and then we will outro and call it a day there. So I'm a big dummy, and I forgot to mention also that there is, on top of the abandoned outpost, we have the new crash sites. Of course, we talked about Whistler's Crypt, but the existing crash sites now actually have AI bounties that spawn in them. Ground bounties, mind you. Which is really cool. So you can actually go in and start sniping people, like basically assassinating bounties. It's really, really cool. Definitely recommend you guys check that out at some point when that comes around. I also forgot to talk about the new Sand Cave, which is also another huge feature in the game. Sand Cave, really quickly, it's awesome. It's really great. It's probably one of the best caves in the game. It's way better than the existing caves in the game. It is a wonderful technological piece to... What am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. My mind's frazzled here. There's so much to talk about. I'm halfway out of breath. I'm trying to get this cargo out of here. I'm trying to get you all out of here. Listen, the cave is awesome. I'm probably putting footage over it right now that you're watching. It is beautiful. It's great. I can't wait to do like PvP in it and stuff like that. It's going to be awesome. And of course, when that happens, you guys will all see it. All right, to the TDD with me. Let's go. In true Star Citizen fashion, the server 30K'd as soon as I had landed. And now I'm in a new server here, and I can only sell one RMC SCU container. However, all is not lost. It shows that I have no cargo. That's actually not true. The cargo is actually still there. The ship has been saved. The problem is when you have a 30K, the game gets confused as to how much cargo you actually have. So all you have to do is you go back to the ASOP terminals, which is what I'm going to do right now. You spawn the ship in, and then you store the ship, and then you come back to the terminals, and you'll see that cargo is restored. Once again, hopefully they will get that fixed before it goes to live. But hang on, I'm going to just make a quick cut so you can actually see that in action. And there you go. See, I just went and pulled the ship, and then I stored it again. And now when I come back to the terminals here, I can actually sell the RMC. So let's see how much we can get for the full load here. All 12 boxes, 92.4. Not too shabby. And transaction complete. Nice little bit of profit. Very, very nice. Alright folks, if you stuck this far along into the video, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed my deep dive, talking both about why 3.18 has taken so long, and also kind of giving you an overview of what to expect in this patch, if you are indeed one of those folks that have not gotten to actually try it yet. This patch is definitely one of my favorites so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing subsequent updates to this, seeing what we can get out of the existing damage modeling for the soft death mechanics, PES, cargo refactor. God, there's so much more coming in soon, and it's going to be, I think 2023 is going to be a great year, guys. This is a solid patch to start the year on, and I can't wait for it to get fleshed out. Alright folks, that's it for me today. I hope you did enjoy this deep dive into 3.18. If you did, please hit that like button, as it really does help out the channel. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this in the future, subscribe. Until next time, fly safe, and I'll see you all in the black.